Hello and welcome to Deep Dive on NewsX World. I'm Ruby Barlow. Today we unpack the paper trail behind the powder keg as the Trump administration pushes a maximum pressure campaign into a full-scale regional war. Washington is bypassing its own checks and balances to keep the front lines armed. From the desk of Secretary Marco Rubio to the factories of Texas, an emergency has been declared, not just on the battlefield but in the halls of Congress. While European allies back away from the brink, the US is doubling down, fast-tracking thousands of bombs as the Iranian leadership crumbles and the casualty count soars. So the big question is this emergency sale a sign of strategic necessity, or is it a desperate bypass for a war that is spiraling out of diplomatic control? The tools of destruction are being fast-tracked. On Friday, the US State Department approved a $151.8 million sale of munitions to Israel, conveniently wiping away the requirement for congressional review. Secretary of State Marco Rubio invoked emergency powers to ensure the immediate delivery of 12,000 Blue 110A/B general purpose, 1,000-pound bomb bodies. The contractor, Repcon USA, operating out of Texas. This announcement comes just 1 week after the US and Israel coordinated their initial assault on Iran, a campaign that has already systematically dismantled the Iranian hierarchy, including the reported death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
Torres wins. An upset for the ages. So I would ask the board, what if our...
However, the emergency label isn't sitting well with everyone on Capitol Hill. Democratic Representative Gregory Meeks has scathingly labeled this an emergency of the Trump administration's own creation. The Trump administration has repeatedly insisted it was fully prepared for this war, Meeks stated. Rushing to invoke emergency authority to circumvent Congress tells a different story. Critics argue that bypassing oversight suggests the Pentagon's stockpiles are replenishing faster than the strategy is evolving. While the Trump administration has used this tactic before, as did the Biden administration during previous conflicts, the stakes in Iran are unprecedented.
و اینکه ما بدون قید شرط بخوایم تسلیم بشیم یه چنین خوابی رو اینا باید با خودشون به گور ببرن. آنچه که ما باش پایبندیم قوانین بین المللی است، چارچوب‌های انسانی است و اون اصولی که اینا دم ازش میزنن اصولا باید به همون پایبند باشن و حق و حقوق همه کشورها رو و طبیعتا ایران ما رو اینا حق ندارند نادیده بگیرن. من اینجا لازم از کشورهای همسایه که مورد حمله قرار گرفتن از طرف ایران از طرف خودم عذرخواهی کنم برای اینکه ما این روند و اوضاعی که اتفاق افتاد، فرماندهان ما، رهبر ما، عزیزان ما در حقیقت جان خودشون رو از دست دادن به خاطر تجاوز وحشیانه‌ای که داشت و نیروهای مسلح ما، قهرمانانی که جان برکتن و زندگیشون کف دستشون گذاشتن که از تمامیت ارضی دفاع کنن. دیگه وقتی فرماندهان نبودن آتش به اختیار تمام اون اقداماتی که لازم بود انجام دادن و با عزت و قدرت از سرزمین ما دفاع کردن. کشورهای همسایه که یه سری از گروه ها و یا جناها در فکر اینن که از این فرصت بخوان به خاک ما حمله کنن، این پیام رو میدن بهتره که بازیچه دست امپریالیسم نشن.
Welcome back. I posted about 2 videos today, but we need to talk about what just happened in the Gulf, because the world shifted on its axis in the last 24 hours, and most mainstream outlets are too busy reading from a script written in Washington and Tel Aviv to tell you the truth. Today, Iranian drones and missiles struck directly at Dubai International Airport, the busiest airport in the world for international travel. Amidst a chaotic scene that reportedly involved U.S. forces attempting to flee the region in civilian clothes.
An Iranian drone attack near the main terminals of Dubai International Airport temporarily suspended operations.
Drone that hit the Dubai airport. There was thick smoke that engulfed the skies of Dubai.
Chaos erupts at Dubai International Airport. Black smoke fills the skyline. Explosions rock the airport grounds, and flights are thrown into disarray.
This is not a drill, and this is not a conflict happening somewhere far away. This is the sound of American hegemony collapsing, and it is happening right in the heart of the United Arab Emirates. While the corporate media wants you to focus on tensions, what we witnessed was a precision strike that sent a message so loud that it rattled windows from the Gulf to Wall Street. Witnesses on the ground at DXB described scenes of pure pandemonium, not just from the explosions, but from the sight of uniformed American personnel stripping off their military gear inside terminal buildings, desperately trying to blend in with crowds of civilians to escape. According to updates on X and corroborated by evacuation reports that even Donald Trump was forced to acknowledge, the United States is currently trying to pull thousands of its soldiers out of the UAE. But here's the kicker that they aren't telling you. Iran has them trapped. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, has made it crystal clear that the war has not yet even truly begun. And these forces, estimated to be thousands strong, stationed at facilities like Al Dhafra Air Base, are now sitting ducks. The U.S. thought they could use Emirati soil as a forward operating base to threaten Iran, and they thought they could just bolt when the bill came due. They were wrong. The UAE, which hosts around 5,000 U.S. military personnel, thought their billions in F-35s and Patriot missiles could protect them. But when Iran blindsided their radar systems, taking out critical U.S.-made THAAD batteries in the opening salvos, the safe haven facade evaporated. Now flights are suspended indefinitely. The airport is shut, and the U.S. is scrambling to perform a humiliating retreat that looks more like a desperate escape. Before we dive deeper into how this is breaking the back of the Emirati economy and why the reformist babble coming out of Tehran is just noise, I need you to hit that like button and share this video far and wide. We are one of the few outlets left telling you the raw, unvarnished truth without the Pentagon's filter. If you want to support journalism that actually questions the empire and exposes its failures, smash that subscribe button right now. We rely on you to keep this light on, because the corporate networks are too busy crying over the destabilization caused by Iran standing up to a genocidal regime. Now, let's get into the meat of this story.
As long as it takes to ensure the United States of America achieves these objectives, and as we flow more forces, and as we flow more capabilities, and as our munitions, as we're flying over the top, have even more devastating effects, we set the tempo, we set the timeline, led by the commander on the ground. Well, there's no expansion. Ultimately, I think the president's having a heck of a say in who runs Iran, given the ongoing operation we have. So there's no expansion in our objectives. We know exactly what we're trying to achieve. When we say more to come, it's more fighter squadrons, it's more capabilities, it's more defensive capabilities, and it's more bomber pulses more frequently. The amount of firepower over Iran and over Tehran is about to surge dramatically.
All right, guys, we have a bunch of major breaking news about the war here to share with you on this Saturday, and it is not pretty. Day by day, this thing spirals more and more out of control, and it looks absolutely terrifying. Of course, we're referring to it as the Jeffrey Epstein War, and Israel and the U.S. together are the axis of Epstein. Let me break this down for you. So let's start with this right here. Breaking via NBC News, Trump has privately shown serious interest in U.S. ground troops in Iran. Serious interest. So as we reported yesterday, there was this military exercise, these war games that a particular brigade was supposed to do, and that was called off. And people are now looking at that as proof that, oh my God, they're about to deploy imminently to Iran now. Okay? Now, by the way, let me point out, the airstrikes alone were illegal and unconstitutional under U.S. law and the U.S. Constitution. And this, deploying ground troops, would be immensely illegal and unconstitutional. In a world that made sense, in a stable, secure, intelligent world that made sense, Trump would be instantly impeached over sending boots on the ground. Okay, this is completely and utterly unacceptable. He's rendered Congress useless, null and void, basically non-existent. Okay, this is insanity. So we have that. We also have this. Mike Preisner says the following: I just spoke with the mother of a service member in this unit. They were given one last call home before having to turn in their phones. He told his mom they were going boots on the ground tonight. So here's what he posted. In reality, some of us won't make it home to our family. America, pray for us. So again, it looks like they're mobilizing right now and lying to us about it. They're lying to us. By the way, we also have reason to believe they're lying about the number of U.S. casualties. They're lying about many different aspects of this. Basically, almost no information is coming out of Israel and Tel Aviv in terms of the damage that Iran is doing there. Okay? And then Trump goes out there day after day and says, the war's going great, the war's going amazing, we give ourselves a 15 out of 10, it's the greatest thing we've ever done. Meanwhile, the bits and pieces we are learning are devastating. All right, let me show you this. Just in, USS George H.W. Bush is deploying to the Eastern Mediterranean. This will be the third carrier strike group in the region. So now they're sending another massive U.S. warship to the region. You don't do that unless you think things are going pretty fucking poorly. Again, we'll get to some more of the details in a little bit, but our radar systems are absolutely cooked. They're barbecue chicken. The Iranians took out our radar systems. That's a huge fucking deal. We're flying blind, as they call it right now. Never mind, the airports that have been hit. Never mind the U.S. military bases that are now burnt to a crisp. They weren't ready for this. They weren't prepared for this. I think Trump is dumb enough to think it would have been like a Venezuela in-out operation, and here we are. Now we're boots on the ground? Illegally boots on the ground? Absolute insanity. All right, how about this one? Trump and Rubio just went around Congress to give Israel 12,000 1,000-pound bombs. Ladies and gentlemen, let me say this as clearly as I can. That is not to go after the bad guys. You don't drop 1,000-pound bombs to go after the bad guys. That's about massacring civilians and destroying civilian infrastructure. That's what that is. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. These sorts of bombs were specifically not used when the U.S. did war in Iraq because they said, we're just going to get too many civilians. We can't actually use these. And then here we are now, illegally sending 12,000 of these 1,000-pound bombs to Israel because the goal is the utter destruction of Iran. That's the goal. They want to make it a failed state so Israel can become a regional superpower and have zero pushback against it, and then eventually become a global superpower. But here we go again, endless money, endless weapons to Israel. Meanwhile, people in this country, they can't afford their fucking health care. They're losing their Medicaid. They can't pay their health care premium. Inflation's going up. Unemployment's going up. The economy is cooked. People are struggling. People are begging for help. And what's the government doing? Sending 12,000 1,000-pound bombs to Israel illegally for them to do another genocide. They already did the Gaza model in Gaza. Now they're doing the Gaza model in Iran. All right, more. We also have this. So we've heard, 6, 7, 8 different, reasons as to why they did this war. Now we got a new one that they just trotted out. Listen to this.
This is a long-term game because what we want to do is get such massive oil reserves in Iran out of the hands of terrorists. And so what we're going to experience here in the short term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefit because ultimately we're not going to have to worry about these issues in the Strait of Hormuz because we're going to get all of the oil out of the hands of terrorists.
They're breaking out the golden oldies here, y'all. They're saying it's to steal the oil. That's the point, is to steal the oil, just like the Iraq War was to steal the oil, just like we bombed Syria to steal the oil. They're trying to steal the oil. So the end goal is basically loot and pillage Iran, steal their natural resources for the Epstein class, and then also turn it into a failed state so that Israel can create a greater Israel in the region. That's what we're looking at. We also have the Epstein being held over Trump's head. You're going to do that regime change or the video comes out of you having sex with an underage girl. Okay, that's also going on. Plus, the religious psychopaths, the Mike Huckabee types, the Pete Hegseth types, who think this is going to usher in the rapture and Armageddon and Jesus coming back on a winged horse. We're dealing with absolute crazy people here. Christian Taliban, Jewish Taliban. That's what we're looking at. All right, let me give you some more. Trump spoke to CNN's Dana Bash on the phone and told her that liberating the Iranian people is not a goal of the war. So again, we're done with the fake cover stories, the freedom and liberty and democracy, and that's why we're doing this. We're spreading the proper values around the world. Now we get this instead.
Delcy Rodriguez, and he said she's doing a very good job. I said, well, would you be okay with a religious leader in Iran? And he said the answer is yes. It doesn't necessarily have to be a democratic leader in Iran. It just has to be somebody who treats the U.S. and Israel fairly.
So let me decode that for you. Again, let the Epstein class loot and pillage and steal all your natural resources. And then outside of that, we want you to be a failed state. And then we're good. To all the people in the Iranian diaspora who were celebrating and dancing in the streets when the Grand Ayatollah was taken out, how do you feel now? How do you feel now that the fucking goal is to carpet bomb innocent people, carpet bomb your family members, and destroy Iran completely? How could you trust these absolute fucking depraved snakes to do anything for the people? We also have this. Trump posted this. This is terrifying, okay? He says, Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors and promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. This promise was only made because of the relentless U.S. and Israeli attack. They were looking to take over and rule the Middle East. By the way, that is total projection because that's what Israel is doing. More. It is the first time that Iran has ever lost in thousands of years to surrounding Middle Eastern countries. They have said, thank you, President Trump. Trump is saying that he thanked them for bombing them and starting war and taking out their leader. Oh my God, this is the most preposterous, absurd lie I've ever heard. I have said, you're welcome. Iran is no longer the bully of the Middle East. They are instead the loser of the Middle East and will be for many decades until they surrender or more likely completely collapse. Oh, so again, he's saying we want a failed state. Today, Iran will be hit very hard under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death. Because of Iran's bad behavior, are areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment. Do you understand what he's saying? You guys are now targeted for complete destruction and certain death. That alone is it sounds like a comic book villain talking. It sounds like, the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler talking, because that's what Trump and Netanyahu are, by the way. But then he says, there's now areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment that they're going to target.
It wasn't until 2017 my late husband passed away. He was only 37.
Of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment that they're going to target. To me, that sounds like a nuclear threat. He just did a nuclear threat the other day on Live Social. Now it sounds like he's doing another nuclear threat right here. And on that exact point, let me show you this. Israel has called on residents to evacuate the area near Iran's Fordo nuclear facility. That's the nuclear facility that's under the ground that they hit last time, okay? The New York Times reports. The warning applies to civilians living near the city of Qom, located about 16 kilometers from Fordo. So as this person points out, wait, are they about to nuke Fordo? Why would people 16 kilometers away need to evacuate if the strikes are so precise? Israel does not have a conventional weapon that can dig that deep. Only the U.S. can deliver something like the GBU-57, which clearly failed last time. If it is the U.S., why would the U.S. not be the one issuing the warning? How would people in Iran even get that message with the internet down? Why is the New York Times the messenger? Ladies and gentlemen, these are unprecedented times, and these are terrifying times. We're now looking at a situation where there's been at least 3 different signals that they may indeed nuke Iran. I absolutely do not put that by the axis of Epstein. The axis of Epstein is completely and utterly depraved. We also have this from Trump. Trump had a meeting with defense contractors at the White House. And in this post, he basically says, they're going to quadruple their output and build more weapons and build more missiles. They're working on it right now. And he also goes, but we're not short on them. We can go forever, and it's totally fine, and we don't need them at all, but they're quadrupling the output. That's what you do. You rush a meeting and talk about quadrupling output when you're not running out, okay? I'm sure of that. But then as this person points out, there's a line in here from Trump. Quote, expansion began 3 months before the meeting. Oh, did it? Oh, did it? Do you realize that you're now admitting that you were planning this during the so-called negotiations you were doing? The negotiations were a lie. They were a ruse. Israel and the U.S. never considered peace. They were always going to do the war. You have Netanyahu admitting in Hebrew, I yearned to do this for 40 years. That's a direct quote. I yearned to do this for 40 years. So in other words, there were no terms that the U.S. and Israel would accept. We are the baddies. We are the aggressors. We are going on the offense here. In fact, Iran agreed to the strictest terms when it came to uranium enrichment a couple hours before they were attacked. So that, again, we should be talking about impeachment. We should be talking about removal. We should be talking about indicting, arresting, and convicting. It is so crazy how far we've let this go, man. They're broadcasting to the world that we never wanted peace. We never cared about peace. We were planning for this war when we were telling all you idiots that we were in the middle of negotiating. Just absolutely, positively grotesque. Now, let's talk a little bit about the incompetence, because the incompetence